Good morning, everyone. We are the Group 9 and we are going to discuss Chapter 9, which is the Strategy Implementation. As you can see, here are the reporters and the topics that we are going to discuss. Hi, I'm Magsinowen Ani Ai, your first reporter. Strategy implementation is the translation of chosen strategy into organizational action so as to achieve strategic goals and objectives. So, ito na yung step na kung saan ipapatupad yung strategy para ma-achieve yung goals and objectives. It is the process of allocating resources to support the chosen strategies. Steps in strategy implementation. Implementing strategy is a process of putting strategy into action. It involves the following steps. First, institutional of strategy, formulation of action plans and programs, translating general objectives into specific objectives, resource allocation, procedural requirements, and other activities. Institutional strategy. The first step in implementing strategy, and it involves two aspects. Communication strategy. Once the strategy is formulated, it must be communicated to those people who are responsible for implementing it. The communication should include the purpose of the strategy and the activities required to implement it. Securing acceptance of strategy. Merely communicating the strategy to members of the organization, it is equally important to obtain their acceptance of the strategy for them to implement the strategy effectively. Formulation of action plans and programs. Once the strategy is institutionalized through communication and acceptance, the management proceeds to formulate action plans and programs. Action plans. The management must frame action plans with respect to the activities required to implement a strategy. The manager must consider the following factors: purpose of action plan, activities required to execute the action plan, persons who would be performing the activities, resources required to perform activities. Programs. The manager also decide about the programs with respect to the strategy. A single-use plan designed to accomplish a specific objective, it clearly indicates the steps to be taken, the resources to be used, and the time period within which the task should to be completed. Translating general objectives into specific objectives. The top management frames of the general objectives. To make this objective operative, functional managers must set specific objectives within the framework of the general objectives. The translation of general objectives into specific objectives must fulfill two important criteria. First, the specific objectives must be realistic, achievable, and time-bound. Second, the specific objective should contribute to the accomplishment of general objectives. Resource allocation. There must be proper resource allocation to various units and activities. Resource can broadly be classified into three groups: financial resource, physical resource, human resource. The management needs to answer several questions with respect to resource allocation, such as where can resource be obtained from, which factors affect resource allocation, which are the means of resource allocation, what are the challenges in resource allocation. Appropriate solutions to the mentioned questions help the organization obtain resource from the right source, overcome issues allocation, and helps allocate resources for the effective implementation strategy. Procedural requirements. An organization must follow various procedural requirements to implement the strategy. Procedural requirements may include the following, if applicable: licensing requirements, import and export requirements, Foreign Exchange Management Act, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, labor legislations, Securities and Exchange Board, foreign collaboration requirements. Lastly, other activities. Strategy implementation requires other activities such as creating or modifying the organizational structure, developing or modifying leadership style, building a suitable organizational climate. Strategic marketing issues. Countless marketing variables affect the success or failure of strategy implementation. It includes increasing competition, fast-paced and changing nature of innovations, which reduces the span of product life cycle. Organizational structuring, increased quality consciousness of customers, lack of a skilled workforce. And here are some strategic marketing issues or decisions are as follow. First is how to make advertisements more interactive to be more effective. Siyempre, kailangan natin i-secure yung ating target audience. Make them want our product or our service. Also, make catchy phrases. Kumbaga yung tatatak agad sa ating mga audience. Example na lang sa Jollibee, bida ang saya. And always keep it short. Example din sa McDo, love ko to. And last, do promotions. Naman ng promotions ngayon ay through online. Next is how to take advantage of Facebook and Twitter about the company and industry. So first, tell your business story to the Facebook and Twitter community. Choose an account name and images consistent with your other online presences and your brand. Tell people where they can find you. Give them enough information so they can find you. Share a web address with your community. Give them your website or blog. Give people useful information and answer their question, and they will consider you as a member. So, dito na papasok yung Facebook page. Karaniwan ng mga businesses ngayon meron ng ganito, lalo na ngayong nag-pandemic, na kung saan dun sa Facebook page mo, nandun na kung ano yung name ng company, kung ano yung logo, and also mas nakaka-boost ng page kapag daily kayong nag-a-update sa inyong page. Like example, pagpo-post ng product or ng inyong service. Also, dun sa Facebook page, makikita na din dun kung saan yung inyong location kasi connected na din yun sa Google Map. Actually, by this, mas mabilis din makakakuha ng information yung inyong mga target audience na kung anong araw or oras available ang business. And also, mas mabilis din makipag-appointment or makipag-communicate through Facebook. To use exclusive dealership or multiple channels of distribution. Exclusive distribution is an agreement between a distributor and manufacturer that the manufacturer will not sell the product to anyone else and will sell it only to exclusive distributor. A multi-channel distribution system then is when a merchant decides to strategically distribute their product to the customers via multiple channels, such as directly through physical stores, an online marketplace like Amazon, or through another large retail chain. So yan, dito na papasok yung Shopee or Lazada, na kung saan kesa pumunta pa tayo sa kanilang physical store, mag-click-click lang tayo dan add to cart, then place order. After ilang days, nasa bahay nyo na. Ang SM meron na din ganito ngayon, like meron na silang site na kung saan doon mo na lang ilalagay kung ano yung mga i-order mo, mga products na kailangan mo, and after ilang days, nasa inyo na din yung product. Tapos yun sa manufacturer and distributor naman, example ako, manufacturer dito sa Batangas, tapos meron ako distributor sa Laguna, at kapag meron sa akin lumapit na customer na taga Laguna, is i-refer ko na lang siya dun sa distributor ko na taga Laguna. So, by that, hindi ko maaagawan ng customer yung distributor ko. Yan, dyan na din papasok yung mga resellers. To use heavy light or low TV advertising versus online advertisement. Substantially less expensive. For a fraction of the expense, the business can utilize all the features of online marketing and realize a greater return on investment. So, ilang business or mga organization na lang ang gumagamit ng TV as a platform of advertisement. Kasi bukod sa mas expensive siya, karaniwan talaga ng mga unexpected customer or target audience mo ay nasa online na. Targeted. TV advertising has attempted to create targeted marketing but cannot compare to the capabilities of online marketing and the ability to focus on a specific group for marketing purposes. Iba din talaga yung capability ng online marketing. Kasi example, meron na dun groups na kung saan dun lang ang food industry, clothing, or kung service naman ang pinoprovide ng business. Example, mag-search ka lang sa Facebook or sa Google ng Korean resto sa San Pablo. Then, matik, mag-a-appear na lang doon kung ano yung mga available. Feedback. A simple click or a few words in comment can provide you priceless information on how visitors are reacting to your online post. So, example ako, kakascroll ko sa Facebook, Twitter, IG, or TikTok, kumbaga mga pambudol-budol, bago ako mag-order sa shop, titingin muna ako ng feedback. So, bukod sa nakakatulong ito sa seller na nalalaman nila kung ano yung reaction ng kanilang customer, nakakatulong din ito sa ibang customer na malaman kung maganda ba yung product or yung service. So, tayo, bago din tayo mag-order sa Shopee, sa ganon, magtitingin muna tayo ng review or ng feedback ng other customers about dun sa product. Nimble. Using marketing techniques online provides level of flexibility that does exist in any other medium. So by this, mas mabilis talagang nai-spread yung information about sa business or sa organization. Price leader or price follower. Price leader is when leading firm in its sector determines the price of goods and services. This can lead leaders rivals with little choice but to follow its lead and match the prices if they are hold into their market share. Passive seller in market whose pricing strategies compete to match the dominant seller in that the price leader. The price follower generally has less capital and fewer resources than the price leader, which makes it difficult for them to sustain any low prices set by a leader. If price followers do not use price leaders as reference and compete with them, the price leader could lose their competitive edge. To offer a complete or limited warranty. Complete warranty covers the one-time replacement of any part of the device during the insured period, active for just limited time after the item is purchased, perhaps 60 or 90 days, or it may cover the product for life. So, dyan naman, example, yung sa cellphone natin. Kumbaga, ang cellphone natin, meron lang siyang 1-year warranty. And example, nabasa yung cellphone natin, nagka-problem siya sa microphone, also sa mic. Pwede na agad natin siya ipaayos sa pinagbilhan as long as pasok pa siya dun sa warranty period. So, isa sa mga brands na nagbibigay ng lifetime warranty ay ang JanSport. And also, nakalagay na dun sa kanilang website, we'll fix it, or if we can't, will replace it. Limited. A limited warranty is limited to just specified parts, certain types of defects, or other conditions. A limited warranty also may include the stipulation that the manufacturer and the consumer split the cost of repairs for a given period of time. So, dito mo naman, specific parts lang yung nilang ayusin. And also, just to add sa complete warranty, the manufacturer or the seller is free nilang i-repair yung item basta nga pasok dun sa warranty period. Pero kapag ang company hindi naayos yung item, pwedeng magkameron ng refund or replacement dun sa item. 7. To limit the share of business done with a single customer. 8. To reward salespeople based on straight salary, commission, or a combination salary and commission. 3. Marketing activities especially important in strategy implementation. Engage customers in social media, segment markets efficiency, develop and use product positioning, perceptual maps. Social media marketing refers to techniques that target social networks and applications to spread brand awareness to promote particular products. So, karaniwan na talaga ngayon, ang major platform na ginagamit ay ang social media. Nowadays, social media marketing has become an important strategic issue. Marketing has evolved to be more about building a two-way relationship with customers than just informing consumers about a product or service. Marketers increasingly must get customers involved in the company website and solicit suggestions in terms of product development, customer service, and ideas. So, gaya ng mga nabanggit ko kanina, dito napapasok yung Facebook, IG, Twitter, na kung saan mas madali siya makipag-interact sa ating mga customers. And yung iba nga, nag-hire na sila ng social media managers to be the voice of the company on social and digital media sites. Saan sila na din yung magre-reply sa mga comments, sa mga problems, kung mayroong questions, sila na yung mag-a-answer. Sila din yung mga nakaka-track ng negative or negative comments. People ages 8 to 27 spend more time weekly in the internet than watching television, listening to the radio, and watching DVDs combined. Most companies have come to realization that social networking and video sites are better means of reaching customers than spending so many marketing dollars on traditional yellow pages, television, magazine, radio, or newspaper ads. So yun nga, mostly ng mga businesses ngayon, hindi na sila nagamit ng TV advertisement or kung sa radyo, bihira na lang din yung sa mga billboard kasi feeling nila social media talaga yung pinakamabilis makahikayat ng customer. Need of social media marketing. Easily shareable marketing. A strong social media presence builds brand loyalty. Social media gives you the ability to quickly respond to the customer. Customers you didn't know existed will find you. Social media gives you a wider reach. So, mas easily shareable marketing siya kasi example na lang yung page, mas madali natin siyang i-share sa other friends natin, pwede natin siya i-refer. So, yun nga, social media din yung pinakamabilis na gamitin para maka-reply ka kagad dun sa customer. Tsaka, customer you didn't know existed will find you. Example na lang, mag-search ka dyan ng live selling. Yun, madami na agad mag-a-appear kung ano yung mga binebenta. Dito na din papasok yung mga budol-budol, which means ay nabudol ka nung seller na bumili ng product nila. Types of social media. Social networks, bookmarking sites, social news, media sharing, microblogging, blog comments, and forums. Advantage of social media marketing: increased brand awareness, more inbound traffic, improved search engine rankings, higher conversion rates, better customer satisfaction, improved brand loyalty, and cost-effective. Disadvantage of social media marketing: time-consuming, risk of negative comments, hackers' threat. Ito lang yung magiging problem kasi parang mas kailangan mo laging tutok ka lang sa online para ma-update din yung iyong mga customers. Also, kapag meron mga nagtatanong, meron mga inquiries, ganon. Risk of negative comments kasi syempre masyado itong public. What if meron na lang basta nag-comment about dun sa product nyo na hindi maganda? So, hindi din siya magiging maganda dun sa mga other na magvi-visit ng inyong page or ng inyong site. Hackers threat, usong-uso yan ngayon. Kasi kahit hindi sa business site ito, personal accounts natin pwede din ma-hack.
I am Raven M. De Los Reyes, and I will be discussing what market segmentation and product positioning is. Market segmentation is the process of dividing a target market into smaller, more defined categories. It segments customers and audiences into groups that share similar characteristics such as demographics, interests, needs, or location. Market segmentation is a strategy that helps you get to know your customers, identify what's needed in your market segment, and determine how you can best meet those needs with your product or services. There are 4 types of market segmentation: demographic segmentation, psychographic segmentation, behavioral segmentation, and geographic segmentation. First is demographic segmentation. It is one of the most popular and commonly used type of market segmentation. It refers to statistical data about a group of people. So dito sa demographic segmentation, pag sinabing statistical data, it refers to age, gender, income, location, family situation, or education. Ginagamit ito ng mga business firms like kunwari, isang vehicle manufacturer na nagbebenta ng luxury or sports car. For example, Ferrari. Then, yung Ferrari company, gagamitin nila yung data kung saan ang target audience or customer nila is yung may mga matataas na income. Second naman is yung psychographic segmentation. It categorizes audiences and customers by factors that relate to their personalities and characteristics. So dito, sa psychographic segmentation, example naman ito is yung mga personality traits, values, attitudes, interests, lifestyle, psychological influences, subconscious and conscious beliefs, motivations, and priorities. Psychographic segmentation factors are slightly more difficult to identify than demographics because they are subjective. They are not data focused and require research to uncover and understand. The third one is behavioral segmentation. While demographic and psychographic segmentation focus on who a customer is, behavioral segmentation focuses on how the customer acts. Example naman nito is yung purchasing habits, spending habits, user status, and brand interactions ng mga customers or audience. Behavioral segmentation requires you to know about your customer's action. These activities may relate to how a customer interacts with your brand or to the other activities that happen away from your brand. And lastly is yung geographic segmentation. Geographic segmentation is the simplest type of market segmentation. It categorizes customers based on geographic borders. Example ng geographic segmentation is yung zip code, city, country, radius around a certain location, climate, urban or rural. Geographic segmentation can refer to a defined geographic boundary such as a city or zip code, or type of area such as the size of the city or type of climate. The marketing platform might focus their marketing efforts around urban and city centers where their target customer is likely to work. Here are the benefits of market segmentation. Create stronger marketing messages, identify the most effective marketing tactics, design hyper-targeted ads, attract and convert quality leads, differentiate your brand from competitors, build deeper customer affinity, identify niche market opportunities, and stay focused. Next naman is product positioning. What is product positioning, or also called as perceptual mapping? Product positioning is a form of marketing that presents the benefits of your product to a particular target audience. Through market research and focus groups, marketers can determine which audience to target based on favorable responses to the product. So dito sa product positioning, ginagamit ito ng mga marketing team ng mga company and business firms para malaman yung difference between sa product nila from their competitors through market research and focus groups. Product positioning also refers to the place that a brand occupies in the minds of the customers and how it is distinguished from the products of the competitors and different from the concept of brand awareness. Katulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, it is done by the marketing teams ng mga business firms para mai-compare yung product nila sa competitors nila. And here is an example of a product positioning map or mas kilala bilang perceptual map. And hindi lang limited yung X and Y variables mo sa quality at cost. Pwede rin yun mag-iba like nutritional value, taste, or yung pagka-unique ng isang product.
Good day everyone, I am Judamel C. Gonzalez and my topic for today is about strategic finance or accounting issues and EPS or EBIT analysis acquire needed capital. So first, strategic finance or accounting issues. Several finance or accounting concepts central to strategy implementation are acquiring needed capital, developing projected financial statements, preparing financial budgets, and evaluating the worth of a business. Some examples of decisions that may require finance and accounting policies are: number 1, to raise capital with short-term debt, long-term debt, preferred stock, or common stock. Capital structure is the particular combination of debt and equity used by a company to finance its overall operations and growth. Equity capital arises from ownership shares in a company and claims to its future cash flows and profits. Debt comes in the form of bond issues or loans, while equity may come in the form of common stock, preferred stock, or retained earnings. Short-term debt is also considered to be part of the capital structure. Number 2, to lease or buy fixed assets. Decide to buy or decide to lease. In decide to buy, usually long-term, it is cheaper to buy an asset than lease it. Remember, you won't be able to claim the entire amount paid as a business expense. The value of asset is depreciated over several years. When you decide to lease an asset, you're renting it for a set of period of time. The leasing company retains ownership of the asset while your business has the exclusive use of it for the term of the lease. Number 3, to determine an appropriate dividend payout ratio. The dividend payout ratio can be calculated as the yearly dividend per share divided by the earnings per share or EPS, or equivalent the dividends divided by net income. Number 4, to use last in first out or LIFO, first in first out or FIFO, or a market value accounting approach. The LIFO, FIFO, or a market value accounting approach is sold first. The first in first out method assumes that the oldest unit of inventory is the sold first. The market approach is a method of determining the value of an asset based on the selling price of similar assets. It is one of three popular valuation methods along with the cost approach and discounted cash flow analysis or DC. Number 5, to extend the time of accounts receivable. Accounts receivables refer to money customers owe businesses for products they already used or services they already benefited from. There is no fixed timetable for paying back accounts receivables, but they are generally due in 30, 45, or 60 days. Businesses only offer these buy now, pay later programs to credit-worthy individuals with track records of responsibly paying off their debts in an expeditious manner. Accounts receivables is typically forthcoming in under 1 year. Companies may offer discounts on balances to customers who satisfy their debts in advance of their agreed upon payment schedules. Number 6, establish a certain percentage discount on accounts within a specified period of time. The percentage discount on accounts is determined based on the specific period of time. Lastly, to determine the amount of cash that should be kept on hand. Cash is like fuel for your business. You need it to keep your business running. Cash on hand can include money held in cash registers and change stores, business safes, business checking accounts, business savings accounts, and investments you can sell in 90 days or less. So next, 5 especially important finance or accounting activities central to strategy implementation are listed below and then discussed. Number 1, acquire needed capital to implement strategies, perform EPS or EBIT analysis. Next, develop projected financial statements to show expected impact of strategies implemented. Number 3, determine the firm's value or corporate valuation in the event an offer is received. Number 4, decide whether to go public with an initial public offering or IPO. And last, decide whether to keep cash offshore that was earned offshore. To have additional knowledge, an initial public offering or IPO refers to the process of offering shares of a private corporation to the public in a new stock issuance. An IPO allows a company to raise capital from public investors. The transition from a private to a public company can be an important time for private investors to fully realize gains from their investment, as it typically includes a share premium for current private investors. Meanwhile, it also allows public investors to participate in the offering. Next is EPS or EBIT analysis, acquire needed capital. So we have 3 questions. First, can the company obtain the needed capital via stock or debt? A stock, also known as equity, is a security that represents the ownership of a fraction of a corporation. This entitles the owner of the stock to a proportion of the corporation's assets and profits equal to how much stock they own. While debt is money borrowed by one party from another. Many corporations and individuals use debt as a method of making large purchases that they could not afford under normal circumstances. Next, would common stock, bank debt, corporate bonds, or some combination be better to raise needed capital? First, common stock is a security that represents ownership in a corporation. Holders of common stock elect the board of directors and vote on corporate policies. This form of equity ownership typically yields the higher rates of return long term. However, in the event of liquidation, common shareholders have rights to a company's assets only after bondholders, preferred shareholders, and other debt holders are paid in full. Common stock is reported in the stockholders' equity section of a company's balance sheet, while bank debt is a long-term liability a business takes on by borrowing money from its bank. It appears under liabilities on the balance sheet as part of all the money the company owes its creditors. While incorporate bond is a type of debt security that is issued by a firm and sold to investors. The company gets the capital it needs, and in return, the investors is paid a pre-established number of interest payments at either a fixed or variable interest rate. When the bond expires or reaches maturity, the payments cease and the original investment is returned. The backing for the bond is generally the ability of the company to repay, which depends on its prospects for future revenues and profitability. In some cases, the company's physical assets may be used as collateral. And the last question is, what would the firm's projected EPS values be, given securement of the capital and implementation of the strategies? Successful strategy implementation often requires additional capital beyond net profit from operations or the sale of assets. Two primary sources of capital are debt and equity. Determining an appropriate mix of debt and equity in a firm's capital structure is an important strategy implementation decision. Earnings per share or earnings before interest and taxes or EPS or EBIT analysis is the most widely used technique for determining whether debt, stock, or a combination of the two is the best alternative for raising capital to implement strategies. This technique involves an examination of the impact that debt versus stock financing has on earnings per share or EPS under various expectations for EBIT given specific recommendations or strategies to be implemented. Theoretically, an enterprise should have enough debt in its capital structure to boost its return on investment by applying debt to products and projects earning more than the cost of the debt. In low earning periods, too much debt in the capital structure of an organization can endanger stockholders' returns and jeopardize company survival. Fixed debt obligations generally must be met, regardless of circumstances. This does not mean that stock issuances are always better than debt for raising capital. When the cost of capital or interest rates is low, debt may be better than stock to obtain capital But the analysis still must be performed because high stock prices usually accompany low interest rates, making stock issuances attractive for obtaining capital. Some special concerns with stock issuances are dilution of ownership, effect on stock price, and the need to share future earnings with all new shareholders. Before explaining EPS EBIT analysis, it is important to know that EPS is earnings per share, which is net income divided by number of shares outstanding. Another term for shares outstanding is shares issued. In addition, know that the denominator of EPS is reduced when a firm buys its own stock, or also known as treasury stock, thus increasing the overall EPS value. Also know that EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes, or as it is sometimes called operating income. EBT is earnings before tax. EAT is earnings after tax. The purpose of EPS or EBIT analysis is to determine whether all debt, all stock, or some combination of debt and stock yields the highest EPS values for the firm. Earnings per share or EPS is perhaps the best measure of success of a company, so it is widely used in making the capital acquisition decision. It reflects the common maximizing shareholders' wealth overarching corporate objective. By chance, if profit maximization is the company's goal, then in performing an EPS or EBIT analysis, you may focus more on the EAT row than the EPS row. Large companies may have millions of shares outstanding, so even small differences in EPS across different financing options can equate to large sums of money saved by using the highest EPS value alternative. Now we have 7 potential limitations of EPS or EBIT analysis. First, flexibility is a limitation. As an organization's capital structure changes, so does its flexibility for considering future capital needs. Using all debt or all stock to raise capital in the present may impose fixed obligations, restrictive covenants, or other constraints that could severely reduce a firm's ability to raise additional capital in the future. Second, control is a limitation. When additional stock is issued to finance strategy implementation, ownership and control of the enterprise are diluted. This can be a serious concern in today's business environment of hostile takeovers, mergers, and acquisitions. Dilution of ownership could be a problem, and if so, debt could be better than stock, regardless of determined EPS values in the analysis. Third, timing is a limitation. If interest rates are expected to rise, then debt could be better than stock, regardless of the determined EPS values in the analysis. In times of high stock prices, stock may prove to be the best alternative from both a cost and a demand standpoint. Fourth, extent leverage is a limitation. If the firm is already too highly leveraged versus industry average ratios, then stock may be best regardless of determined EPS values in the analysis. Fifth, continuity is a limitation. The analysis assumes stock price, tax rate, and interest rates are constant during all economic conditions. Sixth, EBIT ranges are a limitation. The estimated EBIT low and high values are estimated based on the prior year plus the impact of strategies to be implemented. Lastly, dividends are a limitation. If EPS values are highest for the all-stock scenario and if the firm pays dividends, then more funds will leave the firm due to dividends if the all-stock scenario is selected. So before I end my report about strategic finance or accounting issues and EPS or EBIT analysis acquire needed capital, I want to share an inspirational quotation from Peter Drucker. The most effective way to manage change is to create it. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dorado Justin, and the topic that I'll be discussing are about projected financial statement and corporate valuation. So first, let us discuss what projected financial statement is. It is a key strategy implementation technique that allows your startup to examine the expected results of various actions and approaches. So this type of analysis ay maaari natin gamitin upang ma-forecast ang mga implementation decisions na gagamitin natin sa isang organization. Nearly all organizations or financial institutions require your startup to have at least 3 years of projected financial statements. So whenever your business seeks capital, it includes projected income statement and balance sheets that allows your business to estimate financial ratios under various strategy implementation scenarios. So pag sinabi nating financial ratio, ito yung magagamit natin to evaluate the overall financial conditions of the corporation or the organization. So dito natin malalaman if growing ba yung organization or it is decreasing. Now, what role do income statements play in financial analysis? It is essential in building a substantial financial analysis for startups. A positive income statement demonstrates steady growth in the first 3 months of operating business. The sales volumes should keep increasing and the business expenses need to remain reduced throughout the 3 months and the first 3 years. So in short, malalaman natin if growing ang ating business or yung organization if the income statements shows that the sales are increasing or lumalaki after 3 months or the following or exceeding months, and then yung expenses ay remain or nababawasan throughout the months or the first 3 years. So dito natin malalaman if growing or nagiging successful yung business or yung organization. Then let's find out what role do balance sheet play in financial analysis. So it provides an overview of the state of the company's finances at the moment in time. It cannot give a sense of trends playing out over a longer period on its own. For this reason, the balance sheet should be compared with those of previous periods. So para malaman mo if the organization is growing, iko-compare mo siya sa previous period nito. Say for example, ngayong year, gagawa tayo ng balance sheets and then i-compare mo siya the following year. So, it should be assets ay mas malaki compared to sa previous year. And also, yung liabilities ay, of course, remain or reducing para malaman natin na nagiging successful or nag-increase yung assets or yung in terms of financial stable or stability ng ating business. Projected financial analysis can be explained in 7 steps. So let's start with the first one. The first one is to prepare the projected income statement before the balance sheet. Start by forecasting sales as accurate as possible. Also, be careful not to blindly push historical percentage into the future with regards to revenue increases. So of course, ang una natin gagawin is i-prepare yung projected income, which is to forecast the sales as possible. Kasi di ba, ang aim naman ng business or ng isang organization is to generate sales or to generate income or profit. So as early as possible, kailangan ma-forecast natin yung possible sales na makukuha ng ating organization. The next step is to use the percentage of sales method to project cost of goods sold and the expense items in the income statement. For example, if the cost of goods sold is 70% of sales in the prior year, then use that same percentage to calculate cost of goods sold in the future year. So when we say cost of goods sold, it is the amount that includes the cost of materials and the labor directly used to create the goods. So here, sa second step, kailangan naman natin i-forecast yung cost of goods sold or yung magiging benta natin less the materials or less the cost of materials and the direct labor na kinailangan. The third one is to calculate the projected net income. So when we say net income, it is what the business has left over after all expenses, including salary and wages, cost of goods sold, and taxes. And for an individual, net income is the take-home money after deduction for taxes, health insurance, and retirement contribution. So, kailangan din natin i-project yung net income natin or yung net income ng organization to know if it's gaining profit or if talagang kumikita siya or hindi nalulugi. Kasi yung pera na papasok sa net income, bawas na dun yung lahat ng mga expenses. So, ibig sabihin, ayun na yung mismong profit ng organization. Ayun na yung mismong perang kinita ng organization. Next is subtract from the net income any dividends to be paid for that year. This remaining net income is retained earnings or RE. Bring this retained earnings amount for that year over the balance sheet by adding it to the prior years shown on the balance sheet. In other words, every year a firm adds its RE for that particular year to its historical RE total on the balance sheets. Therefore, the retained earnings amount on the balance sheet is accumulated number rather than money available for strategy implementation. So note that retained earnings is the first projected balance sheet to be entered. And as a result of this accounting procedure, in developing projected financial statements, the retained earning amount on the balance sheet is usually a large number. And however, it also can be low or even negative number if the firm has been incurring losses. And the only way for retained earnings to decrease from one year to the next on the balance sheet is if the firm incurred an earning loss that year, or if the firm had positive net income for the year but paid out dividends more than the net income. Yes, and be mindful that retained earning is the key link between a projected income and balance sheet. So be careful to make this calculation correctly. So, connected siya between projected income and balance sheet. So, it is really important na i-calculate ng tama ang retained earnings. So, when we say retained earnings, it is the accumulated net earnings or profits of a company after accounting for dividend payments. It also called earnings surplus and represents the reserve money na available for the company management to reinvesting back into the business. So ito yung perang available sa organization na hindi pa nagagamit, and pwede siyang magamit for future assets or future investing. The fifth step is to project the balance sheet items, beginning with the retained earnings and then forecasting shareholders' equity, long-term liabilities, current liabilities, total assets, fixed assets, and current assets in that order, working from the bottom to the top of the balance sheet. So it should be in order. Next is use the cash account as the plug figure. Use the cash account to make the asset total, the liabilities, and net worth. Then make appropriate adjustments. For example, if the cash needed to balance the statement is too small or too large, then make appropriate changes to borrow more or less money than planned. If the projected cash account number is too high, a firm could reduce the cash number and concurrently reduce a liability or equity account the same amount to keep the statement in balance. So really, in the cash amount number, perfect on the first pass-through, so adjustments are needed and made. So napakahalaga ng adjustment sa isang organization. So, pagka kailangan mong mag-borrow ng money, so kailangan mo mag-adjust ng, syempre, ng mga expenses mo. Diba? Kasi you don't have enough cash na maaari mong gamitin. So, you have to adjust and to less the expenses na nagagamit. Last step is please commentary remarks on the projected statements. Anytime a significant change is made in an item from a prior year to the projected year, an explanation should be provided. Comments, remarks are essential because otherwise changes can be difficult to understand. So, kailangan i-note natin or lagyan natin ng remarks ang projected statements kasi para hindi tayo mahirapan na i-explain or intindihin yung projected statements on that particular year. Para on the other year, meron tayong basis or meron tayong titingnan na remarks para maunawaan natin or para magkaroon tayo ng maayos na adjustment or ng decision or ng implementation. My next topic is corporate valuation. In the field of finance, corporate valuation is the process of determining the value of business entity. It is an important aspect of corporate finance, used for a wide variety of purposes. Valuation is essential for mergers and acquisitions, where a sound decision has to be made whether and what price to acquire a company. The value of a company could be different for sellers and buyers, so valuation is an integral part of negotiation process. Also, important siya as an effective management of a company for identifying its value-generating units and formulating strategies for growth. So, dito tayo makakapag-formulate ng strategies na i-implement natin for growth or for success. Also, it is not an exact science. Value is sometimes in the eye of the beholder. Companies desire to sell high and buy low. Siyempre, kailangan ng kita. So, kailangan bibili ka ng mas murang halaga and then isesell mo siya ng mas malaking halaga compared dun sa nagastos mo. And negotiation normally takes place in both situations. The valuation of a firm's worth is based on financial facts, but common sense and good judgment enter into the process because it is difficult to assign a monetary value to some factors, such as a loyal customer base, a history of growth, legal suit spending, dedicated employees, favorable lease, a bad credit rating, or good patents that may not be reflected in a firm's financial statement. Also, different valuation method will yield different totals for a firm's worth, and no prescribed approach is best for a certain situation. And evaluating the worth of a business truly requires both qualitative and quantitative skills. So, here, Since hindi naman natin ma-forecast or malalaman yung mga magiging loyal customers natin, yung mga dedicated employees na magwo-work sa ating organizations, or yung favorable lease or yung bayad sa upa if naupa pa tayo ng place para sa organization. And also, hindi dito mag-reflect yung company's financial statement. So, not included siya. Pero, most commonly, evaluation of firms' worth is based on the financial facts. But some good judgment can be also be a factor to have difficult or to assign a best possible decision or implementation sa ating organization. Now, we have the four methods that are often used to determine the monetary value of a company. So, we have the method 1, which is the net worth method. And when we say net worth, it is the amount by which your assets exceeds your liabilities, or what you have versus what you need to pay off. And net worth method is that if an individual has more wealth at the end of a given year than at the beginning of that year, and the increase is not from non-taxable sources such as a gift, loan, or inheritance. So we have the formula for the net worth method, which is total shareholders' equity minus goodwills plus intangibles. Other terms for shareholder equities are total owners' equity or net worth. But this line item near the bottom of the balance sheet represents the sum of common stock, additional paid in capital, and retained earnings. So that is the method 1. The second method is the net income method. Net income 5, the second approach for measuring the monetary value of a company, grows out of the belief that the worth of any business should be based largely on the future benefits its owner may derive through net profit. So when we say net income, or also called as net earnings, it is being calculated as sales minus cost of goods sold, selling, general and administrative expenses, operating expenses, depreciation, interest, taxes, and other expenses. And it is useful number for investors to assess how much revenue exceeds the expenses of an organization. Next is the price earnings ratio method. Stock price divided EPS times NI. This method is used to divide the market price of the firm's common stock by the annual earnings per share, or the EPS, and multiply this number by the firm's average net income for the past 5 years. So when we say price earning ratio, also known as the PE ratio, it is the ratio of a company's share price to the company's earning per share. And this ratio is used to valuing companies and to find out whether they are overvalued or undervalued. The fourth method is outstanding shares method. When we say shares outstanding, it is the shares of a corporation that have been authorized, issued, and purchased by investors and held by them. They are distinguished from treasury shares, which are shares held by the corporation itself, thus representing no exercisable rights.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. I'm Erica Maiswaso, and I'm here to discuss the IPOs, cash management, and corporate bonds. Hundreds of companies annually hold initial public offerings, or IPOs, to move from being private to being public. What is an IPO, or initial public offering? It refers to the process of offering shares of a private corporation to the public in a new stock issuance. Inaalaw ng IPO ang isang company na mag-raise ng capital from their public investors. Yung paglipat ng share from private to public ay pwedeng maging mahalagang oras para sa mga private investors to realize gains from their investment because it typically includes a share minimum mula sa kasalukuyang private investors. In 2014, the number of firms going public was its fastest pace in years, as investors bid aggressively for new shares of new companies, paying an average 14.5 times annual sales of firms. The average US IPO stock price in 2014 increased 19%. Regarding investors, however, nearly three-quarters of the firms going public in 2014 were unprofitable, and most have annual sales of less than $15 million. In addition to Alibaba, some of the most successful IPOs in 2014 were GoPro, maker of the popular action photography camera, whose stock hits the market bid price of $24 and rose to $71 for a 195% total return. Also in 2014, the IPO from Immune Design, a large pharmaceutical firm, saw its initial stock price of $12 rise to $34, up 184%. There were 275 IPOs in the US stock markets in 2014, up from 222 to the prior year. However, not all initial public offering stock prices increased. Even Facebook stock dropped dramatically after its IPO, although it's eventually recovered nicely. Going public means selling a percentage of a company to others to raise capital. Consequently, it dilutes the owner's control of the firm. Going public is not recommended for companies with less than $10 million in sales because its initial cost can be too high for the firm to generate sufficient cash flow to make going public worthwhile. Going public is challenging, time-consuming process that's difficult for most companies to navigate alone. Yung mga private company na nagpaplano to do IPO, kailangan ihanda nila hindi lang yung sarili nila for an exponential increase in public scrutiny. But it also has to file a ton of paperwork and financial disclosure to meet requirements of the SEC or yung Security and Exchange Commission dahil sila yung nangangasiwa or namamahala sa mga public companies. Dahil nga medyo komplikado ang pag-going public, yung mga private company ay nag-hire ng mga underwriter, usually an investment bank, to consult on the IPO and help it set an initial prices for the offering. Tumutulong yung mga underwriting sa management para mag-prepare ng IPO, creating key documents for investors and scheduling meeting with potential investors ay mga tinatawag na roadshow. So ito naman yung reasons for a company to pursue an IPO. Companies can raise additional capital by selling shares to the public. Second, other avenues from raising capitals via venture capitalists, private investors, or bank loans may be too expensive. Going public in an IPO can provide companies with a huge amount of publicity. Lastly, companies may want the standing and gravitas that often come with being a public company, which may also help them secure better loans from lenders. Skip cash offshore is earned offshore. Offshore banking is simply a term used to refer to the use of banking services in a foreign jurisdiction outside of the country where one resides. So, an individual who owns bank account in a foreign country outside of their country of residence is engaged in offshore banking. Many US firms have most of the cash on their balance sheet in overseas accounts, since a large percentage of their revenues are derived in the foreign countries. Offshore banking provides a number of benefits that cannot be found in your regular domestic banking system. Additionally, diversifying your assets across different channels, countries, accounts, and currencies help to protect your money and reduce risk of being left unprepared in case of banking failures, currency depreciation, or economic collapse. Now, let us know what is the purpose of issuing corporate bonds. Normally, yung mga corporation nag-i-issue ng bonds para mag-raise ng capital for acquisition, para mag-refinance ng debt, and to fund various strategies expected to yield long-term profits. However, increasingly, companies are issuing bonds to buy back their own stock and to pay cash dividends to shareholders. This practice has become a concern. Yung company, minsan nag-i-issue sila ng bonds para ma-secure yung business loan nila na favorable both sa parties ng issuer at yung bondholder. Strategic research and development issues. Research and development personnel can play an integral part in strategic implementation. These individuals are generally charged with developing new products and improve all products effectively. R&D persons perform tasks that includes transferring complex technology, adjusting process to local raw materials, adapting processes to local markets, and altering products to particular tastes and specifications. Strategies such as product development, market penetration, and related diversification require the new products be successfully developed and the old products be significantly improved. There are three major R&D approaches for implementing strategies. First approach is to be the first firm to market new technological product. This is a glamorous and exciting strategy but also a dangerous one. Second approach is to be one innovative imitator of successful product, thus minimizing the risk and cost of a startup. This approach entails allowing a pioneer firm to develop the first version of the new product and to demonstrate the market exists. The approach is to be a low-cost producer by mass-producing products similar to but less than expensive than product recently introduced. A new product is accepted by customer, price becomes increasingly important in the buying decision. Also, mass marketing replaces personal selling as the dominant selling strategy. Strategic Management Information System (MIS) issues. Management Information System is a computer-based information system that produces routine reports and often allows online access to current and historical information needed by managers mainly at the middle and first line levels. There are four common problems in MIS: the MIS culture, the scaling MIS, integrating MIS, and the staffing. MIS culture. On their faces, management information systems are all about business. They collect and process information in a way that should help the companies that use them to better manage their resources and create growth. However, the underneath the surface, MIS systems are based on science, computer science to be exact. Business, on the other hand, is frequently based on the judgment and intuition of its leader, even if those leaders use data and science to guide their decision making. This can cause a cultural disconnect. Scaling MIS. Very large MIS infrastructure can handle varying organizational sizes relatively easily, since the difference between a very large business and an extremely large one is relatively minimal. All things considered, at the other end of the extreme, systems that run on a single computer for a very small business can also serve those organizations well with tools that are easy to use. The challenges come in the middle, where an organization is changing in sizes and scope and might outgrow its MIS software. Creating MIS, the power of management information system also carries the challenge of getting an organization's worker to buy into them. The customer relationship management programs that many companies use to help manage their sales forces are an excellent example of this. CRM software allows company to maintain an extensive database of information on every customer and prospect. However, to take advantage of them, customer service and sales representative must report their activities within the software, and managers must be able to use that data. Frequently, the process breakdowns. Staffing. For management information system to work, they need skilled staff. At the high level, MIS requires business professionals who understand how to use technology to drive business goals. Keeping the system running and safe from intruders takes server administrators, network engineers, security experts, and help desk personnel. While some areas of information technology have an adequate labor pool, others are prone to worker shortage, making it challenging, expensive, or both to find skilled workers to keep management information systems working. Successful strategy implementation depends on cooperation among all functional and divisional managers in an organization. Marketing departments are commonly charged with implementing strategies that require significant increases in sales revenues in new areas and with new or improved products. Finance and accounting manager must devise effective strategy implementation approaches at low cost and minimum risk of the firm. Research and development managers have to transfer complex technologies or develop new technologies to successfully implement strategies. Information system managers are being called on more and more to provide leadership and training for all individuals in the firm. Here ends my report. Thank you.
Here is our references, and that's all. Thank you.